Can you call it a polycule if it's only 3 people, or is that just a throuple? I don't know. Hello friends, foes, and those still under review. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about all of the new books that are releasing this month in August 2026. There's quite a list of them. August is apparently a very big month for horror, so grab yourself a beverage. I have spearmint tea today. Not to be a total hipster about it, but I did grow this spearmint myself. I think there's just shy of 40 titles on this list, so we'll get right into it. So the first batch all come out on August 4th, and we start off with Meat Bees by Dane Erbach. It is about a young girl named Scarlett Sutton who goes to spend the summer with her father after her mother checks herself into a mental institution. So her dad insists that she gets a summer job, so she goes to work at the Stovetop Outfitters, and one day during one of her shifts she finds a skeletonized corpse at the bottom of the zip line. So the cops come in to investigate, a couple more people go missing, things are kind of weird, and then one of her co-workers goes missing. So she and the rest of the people that she works with go to find this other co-worker, and they find his body being eaten by yellow jackets. And so the rest of the story follows Scarlett as she tries to figure out where the wasps are coming from and exterminate them, essentially. I used to be fucking terrified of bees and wasps when I was a child. I think that came about after one of my babysitters let me watch My Girl when I was 4 or 5 years old, and so that didn't go well, understandably. I have since made friends with the bees. I am not a fan of wasps still. The idea of wasps like legitimately eating people alive is actually horrifying to me, so I'm not eager to put it at the top of my list, but I am going to read it at some point. I think I have to. Next up is The Residency by C.D. Major. It's about an artist named Ginny who is offered a place at a 3-month retreat on a remote Scottish island. So she jumps at the chance for that, especially once she finds out that they are more than happy to have her daughter Isla there. But something is not quite right with the island, and especially the house that they're staying at. Like, the people that live on the island tend to avoid Ginny whenever they possibly can. There's weird stuff going on in the house, like there's whispers that kind of follow her around. You know, there's weird smells that come intermittently. There are paintings that are covered when she gets there that become uncovered seemingly all by themselves. And so she's kind of stuck there without Wi-Fi and no friendly locals to help her out. She kind of has to figure out what is happening with the house before it does something to her and her daughter. I think I mentioned in my July video anything Celtic in nature, especially Scotland, I'm all for. So I probably will read this book just because of that. The plot does sound interesting to me though, so I'm excited to see where that one goes. The next one is one that I talked about in my Summerween TBR video, and that is Small Town Slasher by Stephanie Rose. So it's about a woman named Jenna who's kind of a recluse. I think she's got something similar to agoraphobia. She doesn't leave the house often. She's a fairly anxious person, but she discovers that her partner, who dies in a car crash before the book starts, has booked a stay at like this horror-themed rental cabin in Woods Bay. She's like, I kind of have to go to this. This feels like a last gift from my partner. I need to go and see this through, essentially. The cabin that she's staying at was the site where 11 people were killed a couple of decades prior to this story. No one ever really solved that murder, so the town just kind of moved on. But Jenna gets there around the same time that they discover a new body, so that's fun and exciting for her trip. And so she has to team up with a couple of the locals there to try and figure out who killed this person and does it connect to the murders that happened 25 years ago. But like I said, that one was on my Summerween TBR. I am all about a good slasher novel, especially during the summer, so I'm pretty eager for that one to come out. Next we have The Unknown by Riley Sager. So this is about a struggling actress named Marin who gets a role in a new movie about a mysterious island called New Avalon and the disappearances that happened there. Back in 1926, this island was a commune for mediums and like other spiritualists until all 5 women who were living there disappeared one day. The only thing left behind was a diary from one of the missing and 5 dresses hanging from an oak tree. According to Daisy's diary, they may have conjured something during one of these seances that was the thing that took all 5 of them. Daisy and the rest of her castmates go to this island for a research trip before the movie starts filming, and some of the people start to disappear again. So there's a medical emergency that leaves Marin and the rest of the crew stranded. So they have to use Daisy's diary to figure out how to stop whatever is taking people and make sure that history doesn't kind of repeat itself. Confession time. I have never read any Riley Sager. I hear very good things. I have heard all kinds of good reviews. I just have not gotten there yet. Maybe this will be the one that I start with. The next bunch that we have all released on August 11th, starting with The Devil Inside by Clay McLeod Chapman. And so this is about a man named Jordan who is in a traumatic accident that almost costs him his life. He's kind of starting to get back on his feet with the help of his friends, except for everything tastes like ash. And when he looks at people, their faces start to melt, so that's an entirely normal, but he's alive, at least. Friends are still trying to help him get, back to himself, and so they're like, hey, maybe you need a girlfriend because your last relationship didn't go so well, so let's see if we can find you a woman to help you feel a little bit more normal, I guess. I can't say that's the best form of therapy I can think of, but, to each their own, I suppose. Then he meets a woman named Lilith, and they spend a wild and crazy night together, but then she ghosts him, even though they had some kind of like insta-love type connection there. And so he goes on a hunt for this woman because he's like, I can't get her out of my mind. I can't quite let her go. Suddenly a woman shows up that claims to be Lilith, but she's got a totally different face. It doesn't look like this woman, but she knows very intimate details about Jordan that only the other Lilith would have known. So he starts to worry that he might be losing it a little bit. So he has to kind of figure out how far he is willing to go down this road with this woman to find love. Sounds like it could be fun anyway. The name Lilith kind of makes me think of like the deity, so I kind of want to read it just for that, just to see. I love a good demon story, so that kind of makes me want to read it just for that. But we'll see. The next one is a novella, and it is called Godfestation by Jendia Gammon. It's set in the woods of southern Appalachia. It is about a woman named Ivy Fernberg who has just lost her father, and she starts to see some fairly weird creatures and some strange people. She starts to worry that she might be hallucinating due to her grief, but then she finds out that there's other people who are seeing these things as well, and somehow her father might be involved. It sounds like fun. I am always on the hunt for like bite-sized horror, so this sounds like it might fit that bill pretty well. Next up is The Hill in the Dark Grove by Liam Higginson. It's about a couple of sheep farmers in northern Wales, and I apologize in advance for butchering these names because Welsh is something that I have always struggled with. So the husband, Carwyn, stumbles across a stone circle and a burial mound of some sort in one of their fields, and very quickly becomes obsessed with it, which, like, fair, I probably would also. And so pretty soon his wife has to grapple with the fact that the man that she married is very quickly becoming a stranger due to this obsession. I love stories that have kind of like a Shining-y possession type vibe, so I'm very excited for that one in particular. And the next one is actually a double feature. It is The Last House on Earth and Death Walks South Boston by Christoph Paul. It's two novellas in one, essentially. And so the first one, The Last House on Earth, is about a couple who have been abducted by almost omniscient aliens who are using them to navigate a giant celestial haunted house that is rumored to hold the secrets of creation, but the house is trying to kill them. And the other one is Death Walks South Boston. It is about a crew of outcasts, including a drug dealer and a struggling YouTube streamer who face an ancestral evil, come back from the dead to take over the world of the living. That one just sounds like fun. Both of these sound like a lot of fun, actually. That one's on the TBR for sure. Next on the list is Nest of Tongues by Randy Rebay. This one I'm very excited about because it deals with Manananggal, which are Filipino vampires. I'm a really big fan of like creature features from other cultures. It's fascinating to me from like a sociological perspective. This is about Lily and Caleb, who are a pair of siblings who are Manananggal, and so they are not quite what the myths would have people believe, and so they would never harm another person, but they have to kind of keep themselves secret anyway because they would be hunted otherwise, which is proven correct when a monster hunter shows up and kills another member of their community. Caleb is soon marked as the hunter's next victim, and so they kind of have to decide what they're willing to sacrifice. If they're going to fight to protect their community, if they're going to leave, if they're going to break the rules a little bit. I love cryptids from other countries, so I'm very, very excited for that one. Next up is Penitents by Madeline Blondo, and there's not really much to go off of the summary here, so I'll just read it to you. It is a debut trans tribute to new French extreme cinema and 70s grindhouse horror set on the rain-slicked coast of the Pacific Northwest, in which a writer runs afoul of a local violent family while attempting to take some space from her partners. Set against the backdrop of desperate hookups and polyamorous infidelity, this roaring revenge romp spans the course of one blood-soaked weekend around Astoria, Oregon. Like I said, there's not a lot to go off of there, but it sounds like it could be a good time. Next is A Plagued Sea by Kim Bo-young. And this follows Mu Young, who is a bodyguard who is taking her niece to a very isolated seaside village called Heiwan. And so while she's waiting for the train, she gets a disaster alert on her phone. It's warning of a massive earthquake, but she's like, you know what? It's not that big a deal. I'm gonna get on this train to this place anyway. And this turns out to be a horrible decision because 3 years later, the Haewon has been under government quarantine. Sumi Young can't leave. Her niece is dead, and the earthquake unleashed some kind of plague that has turned people of this village into fishy monsters. And so all that is left for Mu Young is to hunt villagers that break the quarantine. Just the idea of a plague transforming villagers into quote-unquote fishy monsters sounds like a really fun idea to me, so that one I'm anticipating being fairly good. Next is Reliquary by Hannah F. Witten. So this is about a woman named Claire whose fiance has mysteriously died of a unknown neurological illness. It kind of destroys any chance she felt like she belonged. Like, she was orphaned when she was fairly young. She's never made great friends, and so this connection that she had with her fiance was fairly important to her. Even though this relationship wasn't super perfect, her fiance could be fairly cold at times. She felt like he felt kind of obligated to be in this relationship with her. He had some kind of weird fear of the ocean, but still, she had this very deep connection with him, and so she's kind of mourning his loss fairly heavily. One day, the fiance's estranged family reaches out to Claire and invites her to a wake on this fancy private island that they have. The family, it turns out, is a little bit strange. Part of their house is like built into the ocean. That kind of stirs up some trauma about the accident that killed her parents, but she can't bring herself to be lonely again, so she has to decide if she wants to leave or not, even though things are getting worrying. The ocean scares the hell out of me, so I don't know how eager I am to put this one at the top of my list, but I do think that the story itself sounds good. So next up is Saint Delilah by Isabel Spots, and it is about a woman named Delilah who wakes up dead at the beginning of the story. And so Delilah has to find a way to cross over because there are some fairly scary things that are hunting her and are not going to stop until they have sucked every bit of her humanity out of her and turn her into a poltergeist. But she can't pass on until she finds her murderer and kills him. So she enlists the help of Magda, who is a spirit medium, as well as a stranger who has come to seek Magda's help in order to find her murderer and kill him before time runs out. So I really like the sound of that one. I am all for a girl getting her revenge. Then we have She Haunts Me Still by D. Elizabeth. And so this story follows a woman named Mallory who goes to a theater school at her mother's alma mater, which is a sanitarium turned liberal arts university in Rhode Island. So Mallory's really excited because she lands the lead role in Romeo and Juliet, and she's very excited until the spirit that caused her mother's death comes back. And so she has to enlist the help of Ezra, who is directing the play, and Saskia, who is her understudy, to figure out what's going on, what's causing the haunting, how can they stop it before the same thing happens to her that happened to her mother. Apparently this has something to do with an ancient bloodthirsty evil that dates back to the New England vampire panic. I did not know that there was a medieval vampire panic in New England, but I'm fascinated. Now I'm hooked. That's going at the top of the list for sure. Next up is Stay Buried by Jennifer McMahon. It looks like there's a bit of a dual timeline here, one of them being Frankie O'Massey's in 1919. She's kind of been the black sheep of the town she lives in, which is Boone's Ferry, Vermont. Her uncle has been training her to be a doctor, even though the people of this town are a little bit skeptical of modern medicine. A mysterious illness strikes the town, so Frankie and her uncle are trying to find a logical explanation for this, even though the townsfolk are pretty sure that they caused this through supernatural reasons. About 100 years later, in 2016, Ashley and Malcolm, who have just lost their mother, inherit a property in Boone's Ferry, and so they've heard of this place, but their grandma never wanted to talk about it. So they decide that they're going to go on a road trip to this place and check it out. And, it's picturesque. It is the, perfect little small town. But some of the townspeople aren't super welcoming and don't really want them there. And they also have some unsettling traditions, like leaving offerings to a vengeful spirit 4 times a year. The way they describe the town in the blurb is like Hallmark movie, but make it absolutely fucking horrifying. So I'm for it. I'm excited. So next is Them by W.H. Chismar. This one is his solo debut. He's got a couple other ones that he's written with Richard Chismar, so this is his first solo novel, I believe. This one's more of a sci-fi horror. It is about aliens who have been brought to Earth by a top secret government project trying to figure out how to transport, matter across the universe in a very short amount of time. So while they're transporting one of these aliens across the country, the shipping container that it's in tips over on the highway and releases it. And so pretty soon the release of this alien destroys the world, essentially. And so there is one man who years later kind of emerges from the rubble of civilization, and he's trying to find other survivors and hope that they have not turned into monsters themselves. So I've never actually read anything by Richard and or W.H. Chismar. I have Widow's Point on my shelf that I have to finish. I've heard really, really good things about it, but I haven't gotten to it yet, so I'll probably add this to it at some point. So there's one releasing on August 13th, and that is Dreamland by Olive E. Blake. It's about an actress named Anya Morris, who is trying to get her big break. And this break was supposed to be a TV pilot, but she lost said pilot. But soon she makes contact with a man called William Witt, who is a former movie star. He offers to get her big break if she spends some time with his son Jude. So Jude has a rare health condition that causes him to live kind of as a bit of an invalid. And so she signs on to kind of be his companion so that she can get access to all of, DeWitt's resources. But she starts to wonder if something is maybe wrong with Jude that is not entirely natural. And so it's unclear whether Jude himself is a little bit possessed, or if it's the villa that they live in. Olive E. Blake was the one that wrote the Atlas 6. I got about halfway through it before I put it down and kind of forgot about it, so I don't want to give that one a full review because I don't feel like that's fair. But I remember liking her writing from what I did read. I'm interested to read that one because it seems a little bit less dark academia and more actual horror. So next there is a bunch coming out August 18th. The first one being And the Sea Gave Up the Dead by William Friend, and is about a woman named Morwenna who needs to go visit her aunt, who is kind of wasting away in her family's chateau. And she's kind of lived in the chateau alone, isolated, since her husband disappeared. The people who live in the area are pretty sure that the aunt has had something to do with her husband's disappearance. And so Morwenna packs up her kids and her new partner to go and visit her aunt for a week. But things have changed since the last time she was there. Things are a little bit creepier. The village remembers who died and what came back, according to the blurb. And so she, while she's there, has to learn what actually happened to her uncle before it's too late for her and her family. So that one seems kind of interesting. Next is The Calamities by Chuck Wendig, and it is about Morning Main, who is a fiend. And so a fiend is a half-human, half-demon person who is possessed of dark magic born from buying human souls. And so the Main family is one of the biggest and most influential fiend families. And so Morning's father, Hadrian, demands that he return to the family and accept his legacy and learn how to take over after Hadrian is gone. And so he has to decide if he's going to do that or if he's going to kind of make his own way in the world. The vibe that I get from it is kind of almost along the lines of that Beautiful Creatures series that I read when I was in high school. I don't know why it feels like that to me, but it kind of does, so I don't know. Next is The Devil's Pocketbook by Ross Jeffrey, and it is about a couple who are in mourning for their child who was born incompatible with life. And so in order to kind of grieve their daughter, they take a holiday to the seaside in Cornwall. One day while they are out for a walk on the seaside, they discover a large Devil's Pocketbook. If you're not familiar with the Devil's Pocketbook, it's sometimes also referred to as a mermaid's purse. It's kind of like the leftover egg case from certain species like sharks, rays, and skates. But anyways, they find one of those, and inside is the daughter that they thought that they would never have, named Scylla, who also is a figure from Greek mythology, if I'm not mistaken. So it sounds kind of like a changeling type story, and so I'm interested to read that one. Next is The Ghosts of Chanterlands by Catherine Cavendish. It is about a girl named Pamela Courtney who is evacuated to the countryside in 1940. You know how during the air raids and stuff in England, they were sending all their kids to the countryside. Pamela gets sent to a manor called Chanterlands. While she's there, she kind of befriends a ghost whose room she's sleeping in is the ghost of a young boy, and she discovers something else in the attic. So it's kind of horror with a historical fiction bent to it, so that sounds interesting to me. Next is The Halls of the Dead by S.M. Hallow. It's about a necromancer named Irene who is the guardian of some sentient grimoires bound in human skin. So she and her undead husband are kind of the guardians of this knowledge that has been passed on through generations of other witches, but it has cost her a lot to keep this, like her soul and her relationship with her sister. And then one day her lover Agnes is hanged for witchcraft, and she's like, hell no, I'm not losing anything else. And so she goes to resurrect her, but the Agnes that comes back is not necessarily the Agnes who died. So Irene has to figure out how to get the real Agnes back, all while navigating her feelings for Agnes and her undead husband, and also she has to do all this without arousing the suspicions of the guy that hanged Irene in the first place. So, necromancy with an undead polycule thruple. Can you call it a polycule if it's only 3 people, or is that just a thruple? I don't know. But anyway, I'm a big fan of necromancy, so I am interested to read that one. Next is The House That Eats the Dead by Max Doty. So it is about a couple named Claire and Tom and their daughter who decide that they are going to leave San Francisco and move to the suburbs. But while they are unpacking, they realize that something's not entirely right with their new house. Flowers dry up immediately, and the eggs that they bring home from the store are empty. One of her daughter's favorite toys disappear, and they soon figure out that, you know, the house is eating things, basically, and she and Tom are really the only ones that remember the things that go missing. So Claire kind of makes friends with the house eventually, because one day while she's having a moment of weakness, so to speak, she exploits the house's power to get rid of something or someone. It doesn't really make that clear, but, you know, the house just seems to get more and more hungry, so they have to figure out kind of how to deal with that, and also worry that the activity is going to attract other things that they may not want there. So I guess it's kind of Nesta's sentient house, but in reverse, I guess, and a lot more evil. I'm not really sure. Next is Lights, Camera, Frendo by Adam Cesari. It is the 4th book in the Clown in a Cornfield series, and it is about the Kettle Springs massacre being made into a big budget movie. Sounds like a terrible idea. And so this one centers on Sabrina Alvarez, who is the actress that they have hired to play Quinn Maybrook. But when she gets to Kettle Springs to film this movie, something seems very off, and then there are more deaths in the time that she's there to film. The director is absolutely insane. The whole original massacre feels like it's gearing up to start all over again. I haven't read the other 2, but I have read the first Clown in a Cornfield novel, and it was really cute. It seems like it's going to be a really fun, like, Halloween type thing, so I might save that until that season. So next is Marla by Jonathan Jantz. This was originally published back in 2022 by Earthlings. It was kind of a limited run thing. Now it's being republished under Blackstone's imprint Weird Tales. So it is about the town of King's Branch. This town has a reclusive woman named Marla who lives in a creepy house with her mother, and so this town kind of experiences a spate of murders. On the night of the first murder, the detective Carl Lancaster, who is investigating it, sees Marla leering at him through his window. Even though Marla is nowhere near the murder site, Carl is absolutely certain that Marla has something to do with it. And so this whole book is about Marla and how she may or may not be connected to the murders in this town. It kind of gives Carrie vibes a little bit, so I am interested to read that one. Next is The Minimalist by Kaylee Peterson. It is about a classical musician named Mia Voss, who is the last and greatest student of famed minimalist composer Ryder Wakefield. And so when her instructor, Ryder, dies unexpectedly, Mia inherits everything of his, including his final work, Death Fugue Music for Orchestra. And so Mia goes to Ryder's home to finish his last work, and she has to kind of confront her complex relationship with him. He apparently hid his Jewish and gay identities to become one of the most important 20th century American composers, as well as her kind of feelings of guilt about his son's suicide. Apparently they had some kind of romance. She has to kind of confront all of that while this composition takes a bit of a weird hold on her. It sounds very sad, but also very good, so I am excited for this one. Next is The Sleeping Sisters by Jennifer Javon. This one is apparently loosely based on true events. It is about a woman named Fortuna who has finally moved her family to a nicer neighborhood across the Rio Grande. She's kind of running from her past and some things that have kind of haunted her family. One of those things was the killing of women and girls that happened in Albuquerque several decades ago, and the killer of these women and girls was never caught. So at the same time, the woman who was investigating, a detective named Jeanette Palacio, has spent the last couple of decades trying to find the person who has murdered these women, and so a new body turns up in Fortuna's backyard. Both women kind of have to figure out what happened in the past and is it connected to what is happening now. And apparently one of the big through lines of this story, Legend of the Headless Woman, and so that sounds really interesting to me. Next is Tapeworm by A.P. Thayer. So it's about a man named Victor who's recently separated from his wife Trish. So he's hoping that his annual trip to the California desert with his friends is going to help wake him up a little bit. When the head of the welcoming committee approaches him with a fairly spicy offer, he thinks it might be a little bit too good to be true. He turns out to be correct in that worry because, and I quote, "The welcoming committee expects a price to be paid for its services, one that cannot be fulfilled by willing bodies alone." Next is These Walls Remember by Del Sandine, and it is about two sisters named Mickey and Delilah who inherit a house in Savannah, Georgia. They decide that they're going to fix the property up and sell it and go their separate ways. And so while they're working on this house, one of the sisters kind of starts to exhibit weird behavior, and it's like the house is kind of affecting her negatively, and so Mickey has to save her from herself, essentially, and save her from the house. That's another one that kind of feels a little bit Shining-y with its, weird behavior being exhibited by an inhabitant of the house, so I am excited for that one. So the next few come out on August 25th, starting with Blood Rising by Marcus Redmond, and it is about a Ramanga, which is an African vampire, essentially, named Quadzo, and he is the leader of a Ramanga tribe. So this tribe has recently liberated the Barrow Plantation and reclaimed it as the Crimson Plantation, and so now it is the home to other Ramanga and also some Native Americans who have partnered with them. So kind of the big threat that is facing them is Bartholomew and Constance Crabtree, who are the most influential slaveholders in the region since the demise of Big Jim Barrow. But also probably the even bigger threat is Penelope Knudsen, who is a newly turned Ramanga who is white and also has the ability to survive in the sunlight, which is something that Quadzo can't do. And so she's building a white army of vampires to come and wage war against them. The Ramanga are not something I know a ton about, so I am interested to learn more in this book. It's at least a jumping off point for the lore there, I guess. Next is The Burn Line by Jonathan Sims. This is one that I have an arc for, actually, so I should be finishing that one up pretty soon, and I can give you an advanced review on that. If you're not familiar with Jonathan Sims, he was one of the main writers and also the voice actor of one of the characters in the Magnus Archives podcast. Kind of a serialized Monster of the Day type horror story. It is legitimately creepy, and it's also finished if you want to go binge it, so I highly recommend checking that out. So this book is about a very hot summer in London. One morning there are 5 people who are on this train carriage on the London Underground, and they witness an event. So they can't remember what happened to them. Once they leave the train, some other weird things start to happen to them, like they start losing time, they dissociate a little bit, some of their friends start going missing, something seems to be following them. And so they have to figure out what it is that they saw and what is hunting them, and they kind of have to band together to do that. So, like I said, I really enjoy Jonathan Sims's work, so I'm excited to dive into this arc, and I'll probably do that at some point this week. Next up is The Devil Knows Her Name by C.N. Vare, and it is about a woman named Tess who lives in the Appalachian town of Burrsville. A century before the story happens, she was left for dead, and so she made a deal with the devil to stay in Burrsville. So she runs an animal sanctuary, and she kind of uses whatever magic she has available to her to keep the town and the surrounding area safe. And every autumn the devil comes back and says, "Hey, would you like some more power?" And every autumn she refuses. For one fall, while she's getting things ready for the winter, a new pastor comes to Burrsville. He very slowly starts to turn the townspeople against Tess, and he very badly wants the land where Tess has her sanctuary. So the devil's kind of waiting around the corner, waiting to see if she is going to take him up on his offer so she can fight this new pastor, or what she's going to do. I don't really have much to say about that one other than it sounds good. From the sounds of things, it reminds me a little bit of, I think it's called The Witch's Daughter. I kind of get the same vibe from that summary. I really enjoyed that book, so I'm hoping that this one is as good. Next is Last Day of a Prior Life by Andres Barba. It is about a woman who is preparing a house to be sold to prospective buyers, but she comes face to face with a little boy, and she realizes that this boy is trying to tell her something, so she decides to follow this boy through a mirror to figure out what he wants. And it's described as a ghost story without the ghosts, and so that sounds interesting. Next is Netherwood by Jake Arnott. This is a story about a couple named Justine and Adam who leave London behind for a home in Hastings. They're hoping for a fresh start. They're having some problems in their marriage, but while they're settling into this house, they find a bolted door, and on the other side of this is a cave, and in the cave is a witch bottle. After they find this cave and this witch bottle, they start to kind of look into what the house was before they took it over, and apparently it belonged to a guy named John Malachy, and so he was a sinister figure known for his obsession with chaos magic and also his association with a band called Sacred Disease. It was a band from the 80s that was kind of associated with the whole satanic panic scene, so they supposedly experimented with blood magic, etc. Scapegoated much like other bands were in the satanic panic. And so they seek out the help of James Blackwood, who was a former member of Sacred Disease and is somewhat of an expert on the occult. And he warns them to just leave things be, put the bottle back, don't touch it. But Adam is a dumbass and opens it anyway. Things start to get weird after he opens this. His behavior starts to change. Screams come from the cave beneath the house, and people start turning up dead in town. Apparently Aleister Crowley makes an appearance in this book, so that sounds fun. He's a interesting character if you know anything about him, and that is an understatement. Moving right along, next we have The Night Pool by Lauren Lee Smith. It's about several different women in the gold rush town of Coloma, California. So one night all of their paths kind of cross while at the edge of the river. They watch this girl get lured out across the water of the river, and something horrible happens, and so the three of them band together and get rid of this evil thing that is in the river. So it's another kind of historical fiction horror type book. Women's experiences in history are kind of always of interest to me, whether they're fictional or otherwise. Next is The Sunken, the Adored by Danye Coles. It is about a woman named Mercy who is the only survivor on a slave ship, and so once she gets off the ship, she's carrying the first ever camera that makes daguerreotype plates and a letter regarding an appointment meant for the dead slaveholder. And so she follows the letter to the home of an anatomist named Umberto, and she finds out that she learns that the person who formerly owned this camera that she now has was hired to take pictures of corpses for this anatomist. And so Mercy kind of takes over his job. And so in return for taking these photos, Umberto takes her to the home of a Contessa. The Contessa is just absolutely charmed by Mercy and has decided to hire her on as a photographer for the summer. And so Mercy is like, hey, yay, I get to go live, as a free woman instead of a slave. But the thing that caused all of the deaths on the ship that she was on is now in the city. So she has to figure out, what to do about it. I don't know, it's kind of giving Last Voyage of the Demeter vibes. So I am very, very excited for that one. Next up is Tracking Death by Nikki R. Lee. This one is the 8th novella in the Killer VHS series. And so it's about a group of friends who, get together to watch a horror movie from their childhood. Someone taped it from a late night broadcast when they were teenagers. But after they rewatch this movie, one of them ends up dead, and they discover that a new scene on this tape is eerily similar to their friend's recent death. And so the following one might be the thing that kills the next person. So it kind of feels like Final Destination a little bit. So this Killer VHS series is referred to as the modern day Goosebumps for adults. So I am very excited for that one. Honestly, I miss Goosebumps quite a bit. Might have to revisit some old Goosebumps book. That might heal my inner child a little bit. Next up is The Unheld by Luke Larkin. So this is about 12-year-old Charlie, and she spends her days skinning the animals her father, hunts and brings home from the woods. And some of the things that he brings back, such as an owl with 4 wings, or boar with 2 heads, a fox with gills, just keep getting weirder and weirder. And one night, a monster of some sort comes and drags Charlie's father away, and so she has to team up with 2 men from her community to find her father. And I think this might be a debut from Luke Larkin. I can't tell if this is historical fiction or modern day, but either way it sounds pretty good to me. Last but certainly not least is The Woods by Jessica Hamilton. This is about a woman named Alice who drags her family out of the city and to a new house after the death of their teenage daughter Lucy. They find this bungalow out by a set of woods in a smaller town, and Alice is just floored by the price until the real estate agent tells her that Years before, a woman murdered her entire family in this house. And so she's like, you know what, this, sad story, but, this could be our family's fresh start and it's a great price. So I don't really care that people died here. And so they leave the city behind and they move into this house, and then things start to maybe go wrong a little bit. She starts to see weird figures in the yard. One night her husband Jeff just disappears into the woods and comes back wearing someone else's clothes, and he has no idea what happened. She has to kind of, figure out if this place is actually the fresh start that they wanted. From reading the summary, it kind of has the same vibes as that movie Sinister. I really loved that movie, so this one sounds like it'll be a good time, so I'm very excited for it. Anyways, those are all the ones that I was able to find for August. If I have missed any, make sure you leave them down below in the comments. As always, I will have everything that I mentioned linked down below so that you can go pre-order or just buy them outright depending on when you're watching this. Full disclosure, I try to use links from bookshop.org or booksellers.ca wherever possible, so they are affiliate links, which means I get a little bit of a kickback if you purchase from them at no extra cost to you. But both bookshop.org and booksellers.ca are big supporters of independent bookstores. So if you're looking to support your local indie bookstore and also take a couple of bucks out of Daddy Bezos's pocket, I highly recommend checking those out. Even if you don't use my links, they're just a good place to get books altogether. So if you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, give it a like, comment down below, tell me which book you're most excited for off this list. If you'd like to see more from me, make sure you subscribe because there's plenty more where this came from. And I think that's all I have for you today. So stay safe, be good, and I will catch you in the next one.